As we begin our second leg of our
You see the
program,
Fantasila from Chicago?
Yes.
Fantasila from
Is
Chicago.
that you?
No, but she is from Chicago.
Oh, okay. No, she lives in New York. All right.
Oh, is she in New York now?
Thank you for souls who were saved.
Fantasila.
We thank you for the battles and the
But I
struggles
want to
that have
tell
gotten
you
us
to
this
mention
far.
her.
Yes.
God, we thank you for the manifestation of the power and the direction
It
of
must
this
be on here.
facility. God, we ask that it be used
She gave us
to
this.
glorify your kingdom
She gave us
and
this piece
to
of
commemorate
No.
the journey that you have put us
It's
on.
mine.
It's
In
yours.
your precious name we pray.
It's mine.
Let me go back up here. I'll go back up here. You're from New York?
No, that's my husband.
Oh, okay, that's your husband.
Yeah. But I
Well, good
She
evening.
gave it to you.
this is mine.
Good evening.
But I loaned it.
Let me
I
say
loaned
on behalf of the Board of Trustees, the faculty, the staff, and the supervisors and alumni of the Alabama State University, we want to welcome you here this evening. I'd like to take the opportunity to recognize a member of our Board of Trustees, the Honorable Judge Tiffany McCord. Please give her a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, my late mentor, Dr. C.C. Baker, would say that when you felt strong about something, you would get emotional. He said, when you really feel strong about something, you get commotional. And I have to say this evening, I'm commotional. I am extremely commotional about the facility that we're standing in this evening, because I have the pleasure to serve simply as the usher to such a facility that so many hands went into putting together and building. And I'm just honored that we have this interpretive center here at the Alabama State University. And it's been a long time coming, but it is here. And when you think back in our history, what better place should it be than an institution that was founded by 9 freed slaves with $500, and an institution that's 153 years old? We have an interpretive center on this campus to tell the story, the final leg of the Selma to Montgomery March right here on Alabama State University's campus. And it would not be possible with a lot of people. And I want to thank the regional director of Oval for being here and for all of the hard work. And I want to thank Superintendent Myers for coming in. And I mean, he really put the pedal to the metal on making this facility possible. But there are people in this room that are responsible for this. And of course, we saw, and I don't know whether he's still here, Representative Thad McClammy. Please give a round of applause. Former Representative Dr. John Knight. Please give him a round of applause. The county commissioners, so many local individuals that have contributed blood, sweat, and tears to ensure that this comes to fruition. And again, I'm just commotional to just simply be the usher, to usher us into this facility, and we are something proud. And to all of the artists and to all of those individuals that have contributed, thank you for what you have done. And I'm truly excited for our students, because when you think about the founding of this institution, when you think about the march, and all that took place for children that were yet unborn, it is a great proposition. And we have to continue to tell the story and ensure that we tell the story over and over again so that we will never forget. I want to thank, we have some of the foot soldiers, actual foot soldiers here. Mr. and Mrs. Subtle are here. Thank you. My heart swelled up when I saw Mrs. Reese here, the wife of F.B. Reese, Reverend F.B. Reese, who's a graduate of the Alabama State University, and so many others. Ms. Boone, who is here to let us know about the Reverend Richard Boone, who is posted his picture is back there, and you really can get a lot of information, but thank you for your support. And Mrs. Gratz, thank you. We love you. Thank you so much. And there are so many others that I can call, and if I don't call your name and haven't called your name, please don't charge it to my head, my heart, charge it to my head. But this has been a great evening, and I hope that you have enjoyed what you've seen. Have you not enjoyed what you've seen here? And tell someone. But I cannot say enough about the partnership with the National Park Service. Jorge, thank you. And where we've been on this journey to get to this point. And we are just so proud to have this partnership with the National Park Service. And listen, it's a partnership beyond just us coming together. The students are ingrained in this partnership. The community is ingrained in this partnership. And so I'm just so thankful. And listen, this wouldn't be possible without the funding. And when I look at my sister, Congresswoman Terry Sue, listen, you talking about a fighter and instrumental and making this possible. We are so thankful to you. And we just want to thank all of you, and we ask that you tell somebody. And we're going to make sure that people know about the Montgomery Interpretive Center at the Alabama State University. Thank you all, and God bless you.
First of all, let me thank all of you for being here on this very historic night, and we appreciate your patience. I'm here tonight together with historians Dr. Howard Robinson and Dr. Dorothy Archer. Would you please stand and be recognized?
Amen.
Along with members of our steering committee, including Ms. Destiny Williams. I'm here to bring greetings on behalf of the National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture here at Alabama State University, the university at the heart of the modern civil rights movement. This is truly a great day in the life of Alabama State University, the city of Montgomery, and the entire state of Alabama as we prepare to open the Montgomery Interpretive Center in partnership with the National Park Service. I would like to acknowledge and congratulate our esteemed president, Dr. Quentin Ross, and members of our Board of Trustees and many offices across the campus for this historic achievement. May I also thank all of our stakeholders and congressional delegations, including Congressman Sewell, and our early supporters, State Representative Thad McClammy, Dr. John Knight, Dr. William Harris, Mr. Doug McCants. I think he's in the audience. If he's still here, I'd like to at least have him stand too. And the late civil rights activist, Reverend Richard Boone, who worked directly with us from the beginning to research and provide resources to house this center at ASU. And I would be remiss if I did not thank all of the devoted National Park Service staff and officials that we have worked with through the years, and there have been several people that we want to acknowledge. I must also acknowledge Superintendent Floyd Myers for his outstanding leadership of this project that has brought us to this grand opening tonight. This opening of the Montgomery Interpretive Center has been our passion, blessed by God. It has been a dream deferred for almost 15 years. And to paraphrase the poet Langston Hughes, our dream has finally exploded into reality.
Yeah.
ASU's Center for Civil Rights is honored to have been at the forefront in fulfilling God's instructions to receive the vision, make it plain, and run with it to make it come true. We have researched and documented the extraordinary story of ASU's students, faculty, and staff who marched and sacrificed, along with thousands of others, to secure the right to vote as the cornerstone of our great democracy.
At the beginning of 1965, President Lyndon Baines Johnson, having just passed the 1964 Civil Rights Act, wanted the 89th Congress to focus on his Great Society legislation. In a conversation with Martin Luther King on January 15th, 1965, Lyndon Baines Johnson emphasizes to King that he needed to make or repeat and repeat the worst examples of voter registration injustices that you could run into in Alabama, Mississippi, or Louisiana, and put them on the radio or television over and over again. So in tandem with Bloody Sunday, we argue that the students fulfilled this request. Students with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee had 400 support groups around this nation. And they contacted those support groups and asked them to do one of three things. They said, come to Washington, D.C., protest where you are, or go to Montgomery, Alabama. 15,000 students showed up at Lafayette Park across the street from the White House and protested day and night for 2 weeks. Lyndon Baines Johnson complained that his daughter couldn't do his homework, and he couldn't concentrate. Hundreds of sympathy protests broke out overnight in cities and states across the nation: Massachusetts, New York, Michigan, Ohio, Georgia, California, in places outside the United States, Guam and Canada. 4,000 students on spring break, instead of going to the beach, they came to Montgomery. Carver High School students, Booker T. Washington students, Lab High students, Alabama State students, 800 students from Tuskegee descended on Montgomery. These students and the protests that they conducted, both in Montgomery, in the nation's capital, and around this nation, coupled with Bloody Sunday, together changed the president's legislative agenda, and he pushed the Voting Rights Act to the top of that agenda, passing it with the help of those students.
The Montgomery Interpretive Center tells the story of a people of faith who followed their God from Selma to Montgomery, marching to a battle cry of "How long, not long." And tonight, we celebrate their victory in the opening of this beautiful edifice that teaches this great history to future generations. Let us march on to victory is won.
All right.
It's my duty to introduce our next speaker, Superintendent. Well, I want to tell you about the gentleman that I'm going to introduce. Under the leadership of Dr. Franklin, Dr. Autry, and myself, worked approaching 15 years, really continuously worked to get this interpretive center built on this campus. And we experienced, we have a very intimate relationship with the National Park Service. We had over 5 National Park Service superintendents over this period of time. And Superintendent Myers came to Montgomery and took over this facility. And we were astonished. Things that we were trying to get done for several years, he got done in weeks. Some things occurred overnight. It was incredible the type of energy, the way he mobilized resources, encouraged his staff, developed and nurtured the relationship with the university. And so I would hasten to say that there are elements in this facility today that are a direct outgrowth of the vision and the commitment to excellence that Superintendent Myers brought to this enterprise. So we are intimately familiar with your expertise, and we love you. I love Superintendent Myers. Token of our appreciation and gratitude for the work that you brought and the way that you helped to bring this facility to fruition. Thank you, Doc.
You got me all tore up here. I'm just got me all emotional, man. I'm just gonna read from this. so many people to thank, and like Mr. Prezi said, if I miss you, blame it on the head and not the heart. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Autry, Dr. Franklin, Dr. Robinson. It has been a pleasure to work side by side with you, and Dr. Hayward too, who's not here. I can't thank you enough for your vision and your persistence, otherwise we wouldn't be here. Mr. Cleve Weber, who's the curator for this artwork, this dude spent 2 weeks straight from 7 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night putting this exhibition together. So I just want to, plus he's Jamaican, so he's my homeboy. Mr. Weber. I gotta recognize Stephanie Simon, Garissa Caffey, and Lisa Pitchford, they put this whole event together. Flowers, tables, cloths, food, they did all of that, so I just want to recognize them. Stephanie never tells me no. Thank you, Stephanie. She always shows up. Melinda Williams, you already know. I can't even say enough about you, your support, and Congresswoman Sue. My NPS team, I'm just going to kind of focus on this a little bit. Shout out to Linda Byers, who, her vision with all the exhibits going down. Robin Harris, Rob, where you at? There you go. John Wood, my dude over there, who actually put this whole thing together. Vincent Brown is a new NPS employee, and that's him right there. Come on, Vince. Come on, man. This dude, I said, I need some help, man, over here. And he just came in and worked side by side with John for the last 3 weeks. I did not know we hired him at the skill set that he's a skilled carpenter. And he's learned a lot from John, and I want to thank you, man, because you showed up. Andrew Callens, who's my facility manager, Mr. Bell, Shirley Baxter, Kia Hill, who is one of our rangers here, high expectations from you. Mr. Mondale and Jorge, you already know too. 95% of what you see as far as the exhibits was either done in-house by NPS and ASU or by local contractors. So we didn't shop outside of this community. We stayed here, we did it in-house, and we bought most of the material from this community, all right? To our young folks, ASU Golden and Bad, you guys are doing a wonderful job hosting us. Green and Youth Foundation and Groundwork USA. So Green and Youth and Groundwork, they're legislative partners of the National Park Service. And back in the day, they kind of just used to answer phones and file this, but it's progressed where they are a part of this system. They support the mission that we have. And we use it as a feeder program for them to get into the National Park Service. So I'm pretty good at finding money. I don't know how I do this, but I do. And we were recruiting for 6 interns here. And I called Shirley back. I said, how'd the interviews go? She said, we did 14 interviews. They all good. I was like, hire all of them. And they are ASU students. Special thanks to Ken Love and Lynn Ball, who's here. Lynn Ball is a filmmaker and a photographer, and the film that you guys seen today was shot for the Discovery Channel, and it was shelved. And working with Dr. Robinson and some other people, we got in contact with this gentleman, and he let us use this film. So no cost to the school, no cost to the Park Service. And it's brilliantly done. All right, I'm almost done. 2 more shout outs. Chris Butcher, where you at? All right, Chris Butcher, second most handsomest guy in the room. He's the superintendent for Birmingham and Freedom Riders, so get to know him. Lance Hatton, I gotta say what's up to you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate it. One more person I got to kind of, there's always this one person that's on the team that kind of does the extra. She's the one that does all the arrangements, herds the cats, does all the paperwork, makes all the phone calls. And I don't know how we would have gotten this done without her. I mean, I call her, hello, yeah, I know it's 2 o'clock in the morning, but listen, and I just go in and she takes my call. So I want to bring up Destiny just to say thank you. Destiny Rose. Robert Bob Vogel serves as the Regional Director of the National Park Service's South Atlantic Gulf region. I'm going to leave the rest off, okay? Based in Atlanta, in his role, Vogel oversees operations for 73 parks and multiple programs in 9 states and the Caribbean. Vogel has also served as the acting NPS Deputy Director for Operations, as the NPS National Capital Regional Director, and has been superintendent at several sites, including the National Mall and Memorial Parks, Cape Lookout National Seashore in North Carolina, and Guilford Courthouse National Military Park in South Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, Regional Director Bob.
Well, I know everyone else has said it, but I would first like to start off by thanking Floyd for his incredible and steady leadership as first acting chief of interpretation, then as acting superintendent, and he's done a fantastic job. And Deputy Regional Director Lance Hatton and I were just here last week, and it was looking pretty good, but I can tell you, a whole lot happened in the last week, and it was kind of incredible to see it tonight. And they said they've been working 15-hour days, and I can believe it. It looks fantastic. Well, Floyd, we have had a lot of transition here. So Floyd, along with Dan Brown and Barbara Tagger, who's the Barbara's the Alabama icon of the National Park Service, and she's here tonight, and Rachel Montez. They also led the parks on an interim basis after the retirement of Superintendent Sandy Taylor. So thanks to all of them for their part in making tonight happen. And of course, Floyd did a great job. I want to thank all of the staff that are here, the Park Service people that are visiting from Alabama and people from Alabama. I want to thank our wonderful partner, Kevin Kissling with Eastern National, the folks that run the not-for-profit that run our bookstore. So everyone's been working really hard, and it looks fantastic. And I too want to acknowledge our key partners in this venture, that we really could not have done it without Congresswoman Terry Sewell and her wonderful staff, Alabama State University President Quentin Ross, and your staff and faculty. It's an incredible partnership. And Mayor Stephen Reed and the Montgomery City Council and the city at large, and Mayor Dario Milton and the city of Selma, the city of St. Jude's, and other distinguished officials who embarked on this ambitious journey along with us. You know, in a landmark report, it was called Rethinking the National Parks for the 21st Century, a committee of 12 esteemed Americans, they challenged the National Park Service to tell the whole story of America's development and to tell it faithfully, completely, and accurately. The report proclaimed that our nation's history is our civic glue, and without it, our national character is diminished. So today we preview an exhibition that expands the popular view of our nation's history and helps accomplish our charge of telling the whole story. The fight for African American voting rights represents a period in U.S. history that many believe they know and generally understand. However, it really isn't until you start to peel back the layers and raise high the stories of countless students and unsung heroes that the full breadth and dimension of this narrative reveal themselves. The Selma to Montgomery March offered America a chance to realize democracy more fully than ever before. And as our nation marks 400 years since 20 and odd Africans held captive arrived at Old Point Comfort, now known as Fort Monroe, and they were traded as chattel in English-occupied North America. Well, we must also acknowledge that the institution of slavery that existed in Spanish territories now recognizes the United States a century or more before. The full journey, centuries old and riddled with triumph and tragedy, must be told. They must be remembered and understood for its impact on contemporary life and as a measure to inspire the kind of healing that we so desperately need. So as I stand here today on the grounds of Alabama State University, where an untold number of African Americans have strived to seize the promises of freedom and citizenship, I am distinctly reminded of Dr. Martin Luther King and his assertion that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Exalted in that arc are Jimmy Lee Jackson, Congressman John Lewis, Hosea Williams, Amelia Boynton, Dr. King, Reverend James Reeb, Reverend F.D. Reeves, and I have to say I was honored to meet you, Mrs. Reeves, and happy 89th birthday this week. And so many more who have toiled earnestly for the rise of justice now and forevermore. And yes, among that group, I count each and every single one of you. For you realize the gravity of this story, and your presence here represents your commitment to ensuring these stories will never be forgotten. And I am pleased to add one more name to that role. Today I announced my selection of Dr. Joy Kennard as the next superintendent of Selma to Montgomery, Tuskegee Airmen, and Tuskegee Institute National Historic Sites. She is a scholar of African American history and culture, and her 20-year career with the National Park Service has included several meaningful assignments. She was the first superintendent of Charles Young Buffalo Soldiers National Monument. She also managed the Mary McLeod Bethune Council House National Historic Site, managed the National Archives of Black Women's History, and the Carter G. Woodson Home National Historic Site, among others. Joy served for 7 years as an adjunct professor with the University of the District of Columbia's Department of History and contributed to the seminal African American National Biography Encyclopedia. In 2017, she published her first book, The Journey of John R. Kennard, as the first African American director of a Smithsonian Institution museum in tribute to her father. And she descends from 2 early Tuskegee graduates. We believe that in Joy you will find a valued partner offering thoughtful leadership, high intellect, and immeasurable energy. And we look forward to you meeting her when she begins her assignment on March 31st. My introduction of Joy provides a perfect segue to now introduce you to another phenomenal leader without whom almost none of this would have been possible. And mere words cannot begin to convey what Terry Sewell's service as a congresswoman representing the 7th District has meant and means to the National Park Service, Alabama, and the nation. She cares deeply about this site, she cares deeply about Tuskegee and Tuskegee Airmen, and she cares deeply about Birmingham civil rights and freedom riders, and she cares deeply about the National Park Service and is our incredible friend. So it has been our honor to know her and work alongside her. So please join me in welcoming U.S. Representative Terry Sewell.
What a nice introduction. Wrote like my mother. Said like my mother wrote it. This has been a long, long time coming. And to see so many amazing faces takes my breath away. I not only have commotion, I have deep emotion about tonight's soft opening of the Montgomery Interpretive Center. I want to start by saying what a great honor and privilege it is for me every day to walk the halls of Congress and to represent Alabama's 7th Congressional District. I know I do so standing on the shoulders of so many who are in this audience. It is never lost on me, and I know it is never lost on Dr. Ross and on our mayor. Those of us of our generation know that we drink from wells that we did not dig, and we eat fruit from seeds that were sowed by others. It is because of that that we should never forget what happened on that Selma to Montgomery trail. What happened in Tuskegee, what happened in Selma, what happened in Lowndes County. It's not a job for me, it is my duty to make sure that we are protecting, preserving, and advancing the legacy that is Alabama's 7th Congressional District. For that, I want all of you to know it is heartfelt when I say to all of the partners and stakeholders in this room, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have a saying in Congress where we stand up and we say, I associate myself on the remarks of my colleagues. I associate myself with the remarks of all who came before me tonight. There are so many to thank. I am deeply, deeply grateful to your leadership, Floyd, as the interim superintendent who saw this to the finish line. Thank you. We look forward to welcoming Joy, and we look forward, Bob, to you being our continued partner as we continue to get funding for Birmingham, Selma, Lowndes County, and Montgomery, because we need you as our partner, a stable, steady partner. We want to grow. We want this to be the very best exhibit it possibly can be. And what better place to have the Montgomery Interpretive Center than right here on the campus of the Alabama State University. The home of the Hornets, but also my dear mom and dad, my beloved father who passed and my mom, were proud graduates of Alabama State University. So when people introduce me and tell the story that I went to Princeton and Oxford and Harvard Law School, I said, but no, that it was the Alabama State University that led the foundation that is the Sewell family. And so I think it's befitting that when we think about the students on this campus, and I just want to say to Dr. Franklin and Dr. Robinson, look, you guys are the historians. And it's been your vision, a long vision, to get this here. And we know that you will be good stewards and custodians of that history. But we also know that the Park Service must continue to help us tell that story. And that story is an ever-evolving story. It has a foundational history. But the reality is that we haven't gotten to the promised land yet, that there are many more miles to go before we sleep. We see that in the fight for voter rights that goes on today. I said to Congressman Lewis, I would have never thought that when I became a member of Congress that I would be fighting to restore to its full protections the Voting Rights Act of 1965. What it tells us to all of the ambassadors, the young students that are here, is that every generation must fight to keep the progress that we've made, and then use their own talents to further that progress, right? So we have a lot of roads to go before we actually sleep, and I want to thank all of those who are here for helping us finally get across the House finish line, H.R. 4, the seminal piece of legislation, which is the Voting Rights Advancement Act, which does just that. It restores from the Shelby versus Holder Supreme Court decision that gutted Section 4. It restores Section 4 and the full protections. And yes, it passed the House, but it now goes on to the Senate, where we know it will die unless we continue the fight. Which is why the National Park Service helping us preserve and protect this story is so critically important. You know, if we don't tell our stories, others will tell it, and they may not get it right. So it's important that we not only acknowledge these foot soldiers, and I want every person in here who represents or is a foot soldier to just wave your hand so we can give you a rousing applause, because we owe you a debt of gratitude that we can never repay. Why is it so important that we have the National Park Service as our federal partner? It's because it's America's history. We who lived through it, who were the ones who made the ultimate sacrifice, we're custodians of that history, but we want to make sure that it's preserved for future generations, which is why the partnership with the National Park Service is so critically important. It's said for every dollar spent in the national parks, in a national park, it yields $5 to the local economy. We look forward to yielding more resources to Montgomery and to the campus of the Alabama State University. And so I just want you all to know that my heart is full. I look at you, Mrs. Reese, and I am just grateful that we get a chance to not only tell the story, but to have living legends like Mrs. Gretz. There's so many living legends that are here among us. It's important that we record your stories, that you know that it's heartfelt when young generations come up to you and say thank you. We know that it's not enough to just say thank you, but do know that we will preserve that history, we will protect that history, we will advance that history. And so in closing, I just want to say, John Lewis, who is working hard every day to get back up, he actually came and took a vote last week for the ERA. Thank God for John Lewis. Yes, the Equal Rights Amendment has not been ratified by all 50 states, only 38 states. And we in Congress on the House side passed a bill to extend the time for states like Alabama and the other 12 states that have not ratified the Equal Rights Amendment, which all it says is that that no one shall abridge the equal rights due an account for gender. It is on the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. The least we can do is to enshrine in our Constitution that the equal rights of women should be acknowledged and protected. I need a round of applause for that. So it was John Lewis who said that it's okay to get into trouble, especially if it's good trouble. So my pledge to you as your member of Congress, who's honored, truly blessed, it is frustrating at times to be in Washington, but when we see the fruits of our labor and we see that it can get better by more money, thank you, Mr. National Park Service, we're gonna ask for more, but we know that it's important that we continue to fight and get into good trouble. So I pledge to you that as long as there is breath in me and as long as I am your representative, I will continue to get in good trouble fighting for the people of the 7th Congressional District and for the legacy that is Alabama's 7th Congressional District.
All right, so this space that you're in now is the final phase of this interpretive center. So I thought that Bob was going to mention that or mention it. So the space that we're in